All right, it is 7 o'clock. Time to start another Wednesday night open for figure drawing. My name's Dave. I will be your host for tonight. Our model is Katie. And before we start, just a few basic rules. No cameras. If you have your own listening device, that's fine. Just make sure you're not the only one who can hear it.
Except me. I started going to the Wednesday night drawing at the Community Folk Art Gallery, and Chuck Westfall was handling it. He was scheduling models, and it was like a lot of figure drawing groups. There was a small room. It was an art studio. There's a lot of supplies and junky little place, and a clamp-on light and a radio running, and everybody was trying to pitch in, and so I thought I'd pitch in too, and I started putting lights on the model and doing other things. But then the main thing that happened is that the Community Folk Art Gallery was renovated, and we got kicked out. And in 1 week we had nowhere to draw. I got so excited about this figure drawing that I went out and found an alternate venue, and we didn't even skip a week. And so I found what was then called the ECHO, Euclid Community Open House. And the very next week, we started open figure drawing at the Echo Center. Chuck Westfall, out of the goodness of his heart, and he has a very good heart, was doing a lot more than he wanted to do, and I just got excited about it, and I started leading it at that point when we changed venues, when we went from the Community Folk Art Gallery to the Euclid Community Open House.
Herb Williams decided to start a Wednesday night drawing from a nude model. The first person to head that, or to run it, take care of it, was Lorraine Long. And after Lorraine left, a few other people came in to fill in, and then after they left, I took over. And Johnny Robinson came in with his group, by word of Dave Hickok, and I let Johnny take it over. Because Johnny was, he was more precise. I mean, he's a teacher. And Johnny would, take over the control of the lights and this and that, and so I decided to give him the key.
I was needing something to do, and it was kind of a personal thing, and also it was coming at me from two different directions. Not only was my friend Johnny Robinson pretty much taken over from my other friend Chuck Westfall, and so I was hearing it from both of them.
I, like so many people, had heard about figure drawing for a year or two before I actually got myself to the Westcott.
I was in Syracuse. I was working for the newspaper as a writer, so I was aware of things happening in the community. I was aware of these listings. I might have even had something come across my desk mentioning figure drawing.
I was with my little girl at Green Lakes, and a man was drawing me, and his name turned out to be Paul Penhallow, and he told me about this group, this art group. He didn't say figure drawing, he said artist group. And I said, is it for adults and children? Like, for example, could I bring my child? He said, sure.
Oh my goodness, what are they doing there? I'm gonna look silly. I took my pencils, I went in the corner, I went in the way back of the room, I took an easel, backed up so nobody knew what I was doing.
The group is already established. You come in, and there's a certain camaraderie.
I think the inclusiveness of this group is one of its most important features.
I actually was really pleased. They had a great model, and I did some nice little drawings. I still have a framed picture of one of my first drawings I did. immediately I knew I was passionate about this.
It's a social experience, and it's a wonderful social experience.
And I did it possibly as a respite from the kind of work I was doing, which was demanding and stressful, and this was a good alternative to doing that reporting.
That was my first taste, and week after week I came back and I was in the corner, and then gradually, people got to see what I was doing, and I got some social aspects.
As figure drawing has evolved, people who are running the Wednesday evening sessions are more conscious of saying to newcomers, hey, welcome, who are you, how'd you hear about us, if you have any questions, here's who to ask.
And I think people continue to feel that way, and that inclusiveness, I think, is one of the most important features of open figure drawing.
Finding OFD and art education sort of happened at the same time for me. Like so many people, when they come to figure drawing, they don't call themselves artists. They have interest in drawing, and that's what I had. And it took a while to get into the groove of what happens, and really start changing my own thoughts about am I an artist? Figure drawing gave me that voice, that option to specialize in something that really captured my interest and really passionate about. I think a lot of people do that. They're dabblers, they're experimenters, and they have some preconception about what art's supposed to be or what art is, and that doesn't quite align with what they're doing. Some people are extremely confident and just say, oh yeah, I'm an artist and this is what I do. And a lot of people are more reserved and they're just not ready to accept that title of artist yet.
When I go to draw each Wednesday, I don't consider myself to be an artist. I consider myself to be a dabbler. Well, figure drawing is, to me, just the human form is something I think we're all naturally interested in, and drawing the human form I just find is something that totally absorbs me. It was great while I was still teaching. It was a great sense of relaxation. For 3 hours I could be totally absorbed in doing something other than what I normally did.
When I first started, I didn't see myself as someone who was necessarily expert at drawing the human figure. Now I feel like I can draw the human figure. I can draw you naked, just get your face. I have to work in your face, and the rest, it's really, I can draw a nude in my sleep.
I had freelanced for many, many years and considered myself more of a craftsman, perhaps, and I had some proclivity for drawing people, but I wasn't as adept as I thought I should be to be an artist. And so that conception held me back for a while. First, probably and foremost, it started me thinking about my own artistry. I came to the group not feeling extremely confident, not having my own voice, not having my own imagery. And over the years, I developed that. And then secondly, I became a host, so then I started fostering that from other people. So not only did I bring what I needed to get, I got to see other people developing their own interest and such. And then sort of a third branch of that, I started becoming more looking at things in terms of academics. What makes this non-formal learning happen in the studio, and how we can foster things. And so it's keeps expanding and growing like we done in the studio.
My initial thought in open figure drawing is I thought, if I run the thing, I have to draw every week because I have to be there. And the whole reason I did it was to make sure I drew every week. You know, figure drawing to an artist is like jogging to an athlete. And I did it all myself just to make sure it got done. And I put money into it. I put time into advertising for models and doing all the graphic design for the flyers and organizing the show. And I got volunteers to help hang the show. But that was always a second best choice, to have one person doing it. It would have been nice to have a larger community. And luckily, the amount of work wasn't too bad. Most of the time, once we got rolling, all I had to do was schedule models and stay late cleaning up and setting up and buying goodies. But that was enough that one person could do. What open figure drawing as an organization does now is way more than one person could do. And so by becoming a group, I think it's much better, and I think they're able to do more. They have workshops, they have drawings in other locations as well as shows, and it's fantastic. Well, when I got my job at Rochester Institute of Technology and I moved to Rochester, there had been 9 years of investment in open figure drawing, and all my best friends and so much was happening with open figure drawing that I didn't want it to end.
When the group transitioned from Johnny Robinson's leadership, there was some concern because he had been so dedicated and really had put a lot of effort into building the group and maintaining it.
Johnny knew he was leaving, and I had subbed a few times for Johnny, and I knew the ropes. And Johnny and I were very social. We did stuff outside of the group.
When he left, there may have been some concerns that nobody else would be stepping up to the plate to really make sure it continued on in the strength that it had been.
Johnny just said, somebody's got to do this. Are you willing to try?
I knew that Ivor Johnson would be the guy that would take care of it, and I just knew whatever would happen, Ivor would make it work.
I think I was quite naive. It was, what was it, the Labor Day storm of '98 or whatever was, I think, one of my first solo goes without Johnny. And it was like, oh, there's no power in the entire Westcott area. And we still somehow managed to have figure drawing. The Westcott was one of the first buildings to get power back on. And the core of us just showed up and we did our regular thing.
Ivor was very excited about it, and he saw the value in it, and so I just handed it to Ivor, and I don't know if he really wanted me to, because it was just so much to do.
And we just went ahead and started doing figure drawing the way Johnny did it, and I made little changes and little changes and little changes as we went along.
He nobly took the ball and ran with it in spades.
I saw the importance of the group, and I knew this group needed to continue.
After Johnny left, Ivor took over and incorporated, and we became a legal thing.
And I knew that at some point I wasn't going to be able to do the group, which did come to fruition, but way before I knew that the future would change in those ways, I recognized that we needed to be incorporated.
And seeing Ivor bring people in, welcome them, and see it become a larger initiative than just the one host once a week. So that's been very rewarding.
And Mark Wright was very instrumental in talking to me about how to perpetuate the group. And we went ahead and got a pro bono lawyer, and we went through all the paperwork, and lo and behold, we found people to do a board, and it just grew from there.
I was a member of the group that is a regular drawer when Ivor took the initiative to set up the nonprofit, and immediately in that process he needed a board, founding board, and he invited a group of people to serve on that board, provisional board. I was among those people, and I helped out.
OFD was my baby for several years, and I always tried to elicit community opinion on how the group should be run. To really turn that over to a board and have people feel like they have some sort of sense of history has been interesting. I think the board has matured and stepped up, and I'm really feeling very comfortable with the board's decisions, and feeling like they have really stepped up and taken good care of my foster child, as it may be.
I went back and forth between Rochester and Syracuse quite a few times, and visited and drew a little bit, but it was now his deal, and he turned it into a community thing. He turned it into a nonprofit organization, and that was fantastic. And I would love to have done that, but I didn't have the time, and I don't know that Ivor had the time, but somehow he did it.
And seeing Ivor bring people in, welcome them, and see it become a larger initiative than just the one host once a week. So that's been very rewarding.
I thought it was the greatest thing to happen. I mean, there's a chance there that this thing might go beyond us.
Every time I'm there, it's a huge party, and that's so beautiful. And we meet each other, and we talk to people that we've never met, and we interact, and all sorts of people meet each other in collaboration, and synchronicity happen, and it's just great.
I was amazed at how every week was a different gang of people coming and going. People have been there for years. People experiences are always socializing experiences, be they positive or negative. And I always feel I'm more socialized from the experience, hopefully for the better, when I go to the group.
It became a real community. People met and married through open figure drawing over the time.
The poses were always structured the same. We always started with the gestures, the minutes, and we always had the break. And I would bring the snacks. I would bring donuts, juice, and I would provide music also.
We also started putting together non-commercial music. I would play anything anybody brought, as long as you could never hear it on the radio. And so we were early discoverers of bands like Bjork and the Sugar Cubes and Yellow and these during the 80s, and before they were on the air.
I love Chuck's music. Oh, I never had a problem with Chuck's music. Chuck is our DJ, and he is par excellence, and he is just a marvelous taste in picking out the music.
It created a level of enthusiasm that figure drawing normally doesn't have.
What was going on was a concern about adult entertainment, and it was, I guess, perhaps spreading out through the community. It was expanding into places that it hadn't been before, and the Common Council thought, why don't we take adult entertainment and limit it to a specific area in Syracuse?
I knew about these flare-ups around the community. I had seen them boil up about strip clubs, and I knew that they usually died back down.
The unfortunate part of that was we fit their formulation of nudity. We still fit into that definition of how they could write it. It's very difficult to legislate a difference between what we do and the adult industry does. On the outside, it can look the same. It's a matter of intent. We had to go and lobby for this, and we found strange partnerships forming of people that did not want this to happen. And luckily, the measure, the murkiness of the measure came to light, and how people couldn't really write something that would fit for what they wanted to do without crossing borders in strange ways and affecting us and affecting things that they had never imagined. So once we had become vocal and showed up at meetings, the matter was dropped, and we all went on with business as usual. It was a brush with politics that I hope we don't have to go through again. So I think, people that don't have the experience have these erroneous conceptions about the artist-model relationship, because it does entail nudity, but it's the same sort of event that happens in doctors' offices, and et cetera, and et cetera. It's hopefully a shrinking misconception. I think that as we get more into explaining what models do, we'll see what they don't do, and these things will be of less concern to the future generations, hopefully.
I think the concept of open figure drawing was this. A lot of events that people do, a lot of things people do, can be taken at face value, or it can be taken much more. You can up the bar a lot on any daily thing we do. You can eat a hamburger, you can have a fantastic dinner, and they're both meals, but you can do a lot more. And we had children, my kids and other people brought kids in that were starting 6, 7 years old, growing up with open figure drawing with a very healthy and wholesome attitude toward nudity, with a bunch of people standing around with a model and treating the model with respect and protection. And so we had figure drawings by 7-year-olds.
So I brought my little girl, and we went, and that's how we got to be involved. This man, who turned out to be Johnny Robinson, came out. He didn't even talk to me, he talked to my daughter. And he explained very beautifully, very gently, what she was going to be doing and experiencing. And I was amazed at how well she did for her first night of figure drawing. It helped her attitude towards nudity. By the time she was in junior high, when all her friends were snickering and giggling about, puberty, she was very cool. She was like, well, what's your problem? So it was good all the way around.
My idea with open figure drawing was to make it to totally up the quality as much as I could. I paid models more than anyone. I wanted to make sure it was their favorite gig. I learned very quickly that models can think of themselves as performance artists, and so I stopped posing them so that they could find their own poses. I started the custom of applauding the model at the end of the pose, which is something I've never seen happen at any other figure drawing workshop.
On occasion, somebody will open the door and suddenly see the group and then realize, oh, there's a naked person in the middle of this, and they might close the door quickly. But for the most part, we don't have the reactions that you might think. We do have some innuendo and such. There's a nude person, and there's still that, the literature refers to it as a romantic ideal of model as the artist's mistress, etc. I did get one comment once. Johnny Robinson was rolling up the futon, and the model was helping him. And they were laughing about something or other. And somebody made some comment about Johnny and this model that were, indicating that something was going on. And I'm like, no, they're rolling up the futon, and something just struck them as funny.
Since the early 90s, I've been a model at the Westcott Community Center. Open figure is such a unique and beautiful activity and center of art in the community. It has a unique position. The artists come and bring themselves and bring their whole effort and their desire to make art, and they come ready, and as a model I have to match that readiness. And so their dance that night occurs on the paper, and my dance occurs on the modeling stand, and sometimes a little bit off the modeling stand. But I have to perform just like they have to perform. That's been now 47 years as a model, and I'm still at it. The folks are still good enough to invite me, even though sometimes I struggle now with poses that I used to be able to hold. And my physical self shows all the signs of aging, and I'm sagging, and I'm an older man now, but that's okay. It's all right.
I love modeling. I really do. I feel like I'm born to it. And the irony is, I didn't start until much later in life. It was a fluke, almost. It was many years ago. I was much younger and thinner and cuter, but still definitely not what I was when I really was much, much younger and much more built for the part, but not psychologically at all. I still remember the night I first did it, when Johnny said, "Can you fill in for us?" He was always trying to get us all to model and said that he always was telling us, "It helps your figure drawing." And anyway, Johnny said, "Can you fill in for us?" And I said, "Sure." And my daughter, who was much older now, she was not in junior high, but she was definitely, I don't remember how old she was, but she was just, "Oh no, Bob's going to pose tonight." She was really not happy. And when I was asked to do it, I said, "Sure, why not?" And I remember well, I was just starting a training program for being a home health aide. And the next day, my whole self-image was so different and so positive in that training program. I wanted to scream out in the middle of the workshop, "Do you know I modeled nude last night?" But you don't say things like that in a home health aide training class.
Well, the models were, they were the muse for the artist, and you know, all of these models that would come through became a big part of open figure drawing, and we treated them as performance artists. We felt like they were collaborators. And another thing I did is, by using my experience as a filmmaker, I brought in lights, and we would, I would have the models pose, and the amount of time they posed was predetermined. But what they did was completely up to them. And I learned very quickly that what I do with my body and what a model does with their body is not the same. And so they express their identity, their emotion, they draw on their own experience to express who they are by how they pose. And so in that way, the drawings sometimes go beyond a objective drawing, and it becomes a portrait of someone, or it delves into a state of being. You know, sometimes we would get at the end of a drawing session, and I would feel like I had just seen something that was astonishing, you know, national level performance quality, with the music and the meditation and the concentration. You could hear a pin drop, and it was just astonishing. And we would have these moments when it was just overwhelming, the beauty of the collective process that we all did.
I've never seen a group that has an unwritten charter, that has people bring their souls as well as their charcoal to the evening.
Realizing at one point I had worked myself into probably 10 hours a week for doing figure drawing.
I think there was a group, and it seemed leaderless for a moment, or it was just open as to who would go forward in the role of president. And so I said, you know, someone needs to do this, I'm going to do it. I think that our group became more formalized in certain behind-the-scenes ways. Behind the scenes, things became more standardized, so that there's an accounting system, so that when you come in, there's a formal way to sign in, all these little minutiae that make something work properly behind the scenes. We as a group made a conscientious effort to start implementing these standardized ways of doing things. Not very exciting, but good to do. So I think we decided, let's have a big event. Let's try to have one weekend-long drawing conference, and we looked around at ways to do that. Decided, we can team up with Syracuse University, try to team up with the university, have an event there, and the event has grown from one year to the next. But it was kind of a difficult thing, I think, in the beginning. A lot of energy going into it. Yeah, it's great to go to the conference either as a working person and feel that you're pulling it off, or also as the artist and getting to enjoy it.
What open figure drawing as an organization does now is way more than one person could do. And so by becoming a group, I think it's much better, and I think they're able to do more. They have workshops, they have drawings in other locations as well as shows, and it's fantastic.
Moving toward more independence. And my hope is that a drawing center might be on the horizon, and we would have control of our own space and be able to continue all the offerings that we have, as well as build things. We have a number of local projects. We are starting to be a little bit more regional. I think we can even move more into a national scene and become connected.
Another thing about the future and where do we want to go, I think that it would be nice to have drawing, thanks to figure drawing, become a more routinized thing. That is, when you go out and draw now, if you go out and do it in public, people look at you like, oh my God, here's this artist, and he's out. They bring the kids around, and it would be really great if drawing was something that people did enough around the community so that it was accepted as, yes, here's a great thing, and my sister's doing it, or my boss is doing it, or whatever, and not to have it regarded as some special skill.
And, people who go to the schools of art in the community have an opportunity to learn the techniques, but also kind of the spirit of art making. But open figure drawing is a collaborative effort of all sorts of members of the community who come together without instruction.
Okay, I would like to also add, besides the great job that Scott Harriman's doing as president, the backbone and force behind us right now is Dan Shanahan. He is just an amazing force of power and courage, and the way he just plows ahead with things and keeps things going. I just admire the hell out of him.
I don't draw as much as I used to. I'm a filmmaker now, and I still do draw occasionally. I have my drawing board here, and and I will draw occasionally. And life goes on. Life goes on. I'm thrilled that people can be creative and that people can have community, and I think it's. I'm very glad that I gave Ivor open figure drawing when I left.
It still is a friendly, warm group. I think people feel welcomed when they come. There's no pressure on anyone to have to do anything except what you feel comfortable in doing.
I think that there's nothing more important to do than to preserve our culture and our heritage and our lives than make art. That's what art is ultimately about. It's a record of our existence as people, and it's an expression of the deepest part of who we are.
It's always something I can count on for not only its artistic value, but its therapeutic value. And I've seen myself evolve.
And this is a place where it happens every week for almost nothing. Come and make art and listen to beautiful music and celebrate. It's a celebration. Every time I'm there, it's a huge party, and that's so beautiful. And we meet each other and we talk to people that we've never met, and we interact, and all sorts of people meet each other in collaboration, and synchronicity happen, and it's just great. And keep coming back. Every time you come back, it's the same chunk. It's wonderful.
And been able to get from others and give to others. It's a wonderful community. You know, there's less and less today because there's more and more tools available, and I mourn the loss of the fact that there is less drawing in curriculums, and I think we're all going to suffer a little for it.
I think the thing about open figure drawing that's special is that it is special. It's not just 8 people in a grimy art studio with a radio playing with some cold, dirty model with charcoal all over their hands and feet, and no light. You know, we decided to make everything as good as we could make it. Really support the models, have a great space which we could get it. I remember nights when we had 32 people there at figure drawing, which is kind of unheard of. I broke even at 15, and we almost never fail to break even. And most figure drawing groups are 6 or 7 people. But we had a space that it could accommodate it. We were 360 on all sides, a beautiful space right in the middle of where a lot of artists live, so when there was a snow day, enough people could walk in.
You know, forever, because it's a great asset to the community, and you know, and we're trying to reach out to kids and stuff now, and you know, make their portfolios look better for college. And you know, I think that really makes this a beneficial thing, something that Syracuse needs.
That there's nothing that I've done in my life, and I think I've had, 50 different careers in my life, but there's nothing that I've done that is more important than modeling, and more a part of the essence of who I am than modeling.
I don't think we have to be any more than we already are. I think that in the future, I would just hope that we continue to be what we've been all through the years that I've been coming.
And time.
But my hope is there will always be a figure central stage, and people experimenting and testing themselves, and commiserating with one another, and exhibiting with one another, and learning from one another, and just continuing the tradition of figure drawing. I think the future is bright for figure drawing.